The night sky over the Persian Gulf splits open. No warning, no siren that comes in time, just the low, distant hum of engines that have already crossed 1,000 miles of empty ocean. And behind them, the largest concentration of American firepower the Middle East has seen in decades. This is not a single strike. This is a campaign. The Pentagon calls it Operation Epic Fury, and in the opening hours alone, the United States threw nearly every weapon in its modern arsenal at Iran. Stealth bombers older than most of the pilots flying them, missiles that can travel 1,000 kilometers and still land within meters of their target, and a new generation of low-cost attack drones flying combat missions for the very first time.
Tonight, we break down exactly what America is using to strike Iran, piece by piece, system by system, and why each weapon was chosen for the job it was given. Before a single bomb fell, the United States spent weeks quietly assembling one of the largest military footprints the region has seen in a generation. Aircraft carriers moved into position, fighter squadrons relocated to bases across the Gulf, bomber task forces went on alert thousands of miles away, on the other side of the planet, in the American Midwest. President Trump had warned publicly that the U.S. military was locked and loaded. It wasn't a bluff. Within days, that buildup had a target and a name: Operation Epic Fury. The scale of the opening assault was staggering. In the first 24 hours, U.S. Central Command reported strikes on more than 1,000 sites across Iran: nuclear facilities, missile installations, air defense networks, naval assets, and command infrastructure. To understand how that kind of damage is even possible in a single day, you have to understand the machines that did it. Start with the aircraft that opened the war, the B-2 Spirit. It doesn't look like a normal bomber. No tail, no sharp edges, just a black, bat-winged silhouette built from the ground up to disappear from radar. Each one costs more than $1 billion. There are only 19 in the entire U.S. Air Force fleet, and they are considered too valuable and too irreplaceable to risk casually. The B-2 flies out of a single home base, Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. That means every mission starts with a flight of staggering distance. In earlier strikes against Iran's nuclear program, B-2 crews flew a 34-hour round trip, refueling in midair multiple times just to reach their targets and get home. 7 B-2s flew that mission. Others were sent in the opposite direction, toward Hawaii, as a deliberate deception to confuse anyone tracking American bomber movements. The payload mattered as much as the aircraft. For striking deeply buried nuclear infrastructure, the B-2 carried the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, a 30,000-pound bunker buster, the largest conventional bomb in the American arsenal, designed to punch through layers of rock and reinforced concrete before detonating underground. In later waves of the campaign, the mission changed. Instead of nuclear sites, B-2s shifted to Iran's ballistic missile installations, and instead of the massive bunker busters, they dropped 2,000-pound precision bombs, better suited to destroying missile storage and launch infrastructure without the same overkill. 2 different targets, 2 different bombs. Same aircraft, same crews, same 34-hour commitment, every single time. While the B-2s were still inbound, a different weapon was already in the air: the Tomahawk cruise missile. Tomahawks don't need a runway. They don't need a pilot. They launch from the deck of a warship or from beneath the surface of the ocean, from a submarine no one can see, and they fly low, hugging the terrain for hundreds of kilometers before finding their target with near surgical accuracy. In the strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, roughly 30 Tomahawks were launched from naval platforms positioned some 640 kilometers offshore, targeting the enrichment sites at Natanz and Isfahan. That distance matters. It means the ships that fired them were never inside Iranian strike range when they pulled the trigger. The Tomahawk's real value isn't raw destructive power. It's reach without exposure. No American pilot has to fly into contested airspace. No American life is put directly in the missile's own flight path. It is, in the coldest possible sense, a way to project force without paying for it in blood.
Combined with the B-2's bunker busters, the Tomahawk strikes formed a 1-2 punch. The missiles softened and struck surface infrastructure from standoff range, while the bombers delivered the payload capable of reaching what was buried deep underground. Bombers and missiles opened the door. Fighter aircraft kept it open. CENTCOM's own after-action statements list a wide mix of fighter types flying in support of the campaign. F-22 Raptors, F-35 stealth fighters, F-16 Fighting Falcons, and even the aging but brutally effective A-10 Warthog. Each aircraft had a distinct job. The F-22 Raptor is America's air superiority fighter. Its purpose is simple: make sure nothing challenges U.S. aircraft in the sky. Its stealth profile and sensor suite let it detect and, if necessary, eliminate threats before those threats even know it's there. The F-35, in both its stealth and multi-role configurations, handled precision strikes on hardened targets, using its advanced sensor fusion to identify and hit targets that older aircraft would struggle to locate through Iran's air defense clutter.
The F-16, a decades-old airframe still flying because it works, filled in as a strike and escort workhorse, flying in numbers the more expensive stealth aircraft simply can't match. And then there's the A-10 Warthog. Built around a single enormous rotary cannon, the A-10 isn't subtle and isn't stealthy. It's a low and slow tank killer, originally designed for the Cold War, still flying in 2026 because nothing else does its specific job as well: getting low, getting close, and tearing apart armored and ground targets with brute mechanical force. Behind all of them flew the aircraft most people never hear about: EA-18G Growlers, electronic warfare planes whose entire mission is jamming and blinding Iranian radar and communications, clearing a path the other aircraft fly through unseen. Now for the weapon that's never been used in combat before: the Lucas drone.
LUCAS stands for Low Cost Unmanned Combat Attack System, and Operation Epic Fury marked its first ever combat deployment, according to CENTCOM. There's an uncomfortable irony buried in this weapon's design. LUCAS is, by American acknowledgement, essentially a domestic answer to Iran's own Shahed 136, the cheap, disposable, one-way attack drone that Iran has exported and used extensively itself in conflicts across the region. The United States studied its enemy's most effective low-cost weapon and built its own version. The drones are operated by a dedicated unit, Task Force Scorpion Strike, activated in the Middle East in the months leading up to the war specifically to get inexpensive drone capability into American hands quickly.
The logic is brutally simple. A single B-2 costs over $1 billion and puts a two-person crew at risk on a 34-hour mission. A Lucas drone costs a tiny fraction of that, carries no one, and is designed to be expended, flown directly into a target and destroyed in the process. For lower value or heavily defended targets, you don't send your most expensive, most irreplaceable asset. You send the cheap one, and you send a lot of them. This is the direction modern warfare is bending toward. Not replacing the B-2 and the Tomahawk, but surrounding them with a swarm of disposable systems that soak up air defenses and make every remaining target easier to hit. By the later stages of the campaign, the war had shifted from a single dramatic opening strike into something longer and grinding, a sustained nightly campaign. CENTCOM confirmed 7 consecutive nights of strikes against Iranian targets, hitting surveillance sites, military logistics infrastructure, underground weapons storage, and maritime capabilities, using, in the military's own words, a combination of fighter aircraft, aerial drones, and warships together in coordinated strikes. Alongside the bombing campaign, the U.S. Navy carried out something just as consequential: a full naval blockade of Iranian ports, which CENTCOM described itself as fully enforcing. Warships didn't just fire missiles, they physically cut off Iran's maritime trade routes, choking supply lines the same way the bombs were choking military infrastructure on land.
Strikes also targeted Iranian military assets positioned near the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical oil shipping corridors on Earth, with CENTCOM stating explicitly that certain strikes were aimed at neutralizing Iranian military capabilities used to threaten vessels freely transiting the strait.
This is the part of modern warfare that rarely makes the highlight reel. Not a single dramatic bombing run, but ships sitting on station night after night, enforcing a blockade that strangles an economy just as effectively as any airstrike destroys a building. Put it all together, and Operation Epic Fury represents almost the entire spectrum of American military power, deployed simultaneously. Stealth bombers flying halfway around the world to deliver the only bomb capable of reaching buried nuclear infrastructure. Cruise missiles striking from hundreds of kilometers offshore without exposing a single sailor to enemy fire. Air superiority fighters clearing the sky. Multi-role stealth jets finding and destroying hardened targets. Cold War-era tank killers still doing the job nothing newer does better. Electronic warfare aircraft blinding enemy radar from the shadows. A brand new generation of cheap, disposable drones absorbing risk that used to fall on human pilots. And a naval blockade squeezing an entire nation's economy from the sea. No single weapon did this. It was the combination. Expensive and disposable, manned and unmanned, offshore and overhead, all layered together into one campaign. Every war reveals what a military has actually built, not just what it claims to have. Operation Epic Fury revealed an American arsenal built for exactly this kind of fight. Long range, low exposure, technologically overwhelming, and increasingly willing to send a cheap machine into danger before it sends a person. The weapons in this video weren't hypothetical. Every one of them flew, fired, or floated into position over Iran in real time, confirmed by the same central command that ordered them into action. Whatever comes next in this conflict, one thing is already clear. The character of modern warfare is changing, and Iran just became the place where America's newest arsenal was tested in full, for the first time, all at once,